get into season 2, episode 22. What the fuck is it called? Move zoom screen. Finding the Words. Original air date, March 22nd, 1991. The wonderful Fred Fox Jr. wrote this episode. Pending as far as if he's going to be on the podcast yet. We'll see, but we'd love to have him on. Rich Correll directs this one, and our only guest star, the most important character in this episode, really, Paul Winfield as Jimmy Baines. The late, great Paul Winfield, by the way. He died in 2004. Did you know about Paul Winfield before this episode?
I've seen a few things he's acted in, like a few roles that he had. One of them, I think, was Touched by an Angel.
Really?
Like, I feel like he was on an episode of Touched by an Angel, but I've seen him a lot through my childhood.
So we'll get into the credits later on, but if you remember, like, the studio audience applauded at his entrance, and I was like, huh? I've never heard of this guy before. Let me look at his Wikipedia. So I'll discuss his credits later on. All right, let's do it. Hulu summary. Harriette and Rachel. Their father, whom they believed was killed in the Korean War, comes to the Winslow home and wants to make amends for abandoning their daughters. And, the summary, the way it's written out, it makes it seem like, all right, we have a problem. We're going to solve it. Boop, 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 which perfectly describes how I thought Jimmy executed this thing. This is going to be my main course later on, but God, parents who have abandoned their child's lives and the way they think they can just come back into it, like, it's just, it's so naive, but we'll get into that.
It is. Now, my perspective from this episode, I did not read the Hulu synopsis or anything.
Yeah.
I went in completely blind with this episode, and it is very interesting.
All right. Well, let's get into it. I will just say that I am giving this a much lower rating than episodes that I've given in the past. No, cold open. All right, we go into the kitchen. This is Steve and Carl. Carl is putting together a present for the wifey. Steve, of course, is not going to make things smooth. What were your thoughts about this cold open?
So the cold open I thought was hilarious. I knew what was going to happen with this gag as soon as I saw Carl wrapping the present. But what sent me is Steve walks in and sees Carl struggling with this bowl, but tries to pick up the entire box and just take it away from him.
Yeah. I was like, boy, do you not have any manners? Like, it's one thing to insist to help out with the present, but like, Andrew, when has someone not only asked if you wanted help with something, but like physically touched and farangled the thing that they wanted to, like, how about wait until I say yes before you go touching my shit like that?
Yes. Everyone knows, do not interrupt me when I'm focused on doing something. Then I'm going to...
Yeah, seriously. So Steve just enters in with the expected round of applause, and there's always gonna be at least 2 or 3 girls that are just cheering. And then Carl is really touching my heart as a fellow straight man, because he, like me, things that should be simple, like wrapping up a present, we look at it as like a difficult science project. I see Carl trying to figure out, like, okay, do I wrap the ribbon like this? Do I wrap the ribbon like that? And this is me trying to wrap any Christmas present. And after 2 seconds, just saying, all right, fuck it, Tony, my dear wife, just take care of this. I want to go eat bacon somewhere.
Yeah, that's would have been me. I'd be like, I'm not wrapping this. I hate presents in the first place. No, get out.
Yeah, let's leave it to the professionals. And I like Steve's greeting going into this. He was like, hi, Carl, what's the magic word? And then Carl, of course, is like, out, to indicate to Urkel that he wants him to get the fuck out. And Family Matters, it just loves giving me words that I've never really either heard before or just don't know the meaning of. Steve gives his snort laugh, and Carl, he calls Carl the king of brevity, the king of brevity. Yeah, Brevity. And I assume, since you're a smarter man than I am, Andrew, that you knew what brevity was.
I've heard it.
Okay, well, there you go. That's a start. It means concise and exact use of words in writing or speech.
I don't see that for Carl, but Steve came in with a nice opening.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, what the fuck is wrong with Steve just touching Carl's present without permission like he did? And Carl is telling Steve that he's giving Harriette sort of a, I love you so much, I'll spend more than I can afford present. And Steve brings out a poet quote that I've never heard before from Robert Browning. Do you remember this one? The one that was like, quote, "Take away love and our earth is a tomb."
Never heard that.
Me neither. It's my first time hearing that quote. It's my first time hearing Robert Browning. Carl gave me a chuckle with his snappy dad comeback. His joke was like, don't please your wife and you'll end up in a tomb. Carl Winslow, like he signed his name at the end of it. It was just perfect. I loved it.
Reggie delivered that line very well. I laughed. I open mouth laughed.
Absolutely. And then Steve snort laughs at that joke that Carl just said, and then he pats him on the back so hard that Carl gets startled and almost drops the present. And did you notice the sound of whatever the fuck was inside that present? I was kind of startled myself because it seemed like there was like some heavy glass in there.
Yes, it's a crystal vase that's in that box, and that was why it made that glass.
Wait, did Carl already say that he was rapping?
Don't worry, it's like a throwaway part of his line. He says it very quickly when Steve walks in because I had to rewind it 3 times to hear him say it.
I can bet you, you have my wife in the Zoom chat and she'll just be like, oh, there you go. Once again, not listening.
It happens. It's a throwaway line. You would not have picked it up if you weren't highly paying attention. I had to rewind to hear it.
Okay. All right. Fine. I mean, I pause Family Matters like every 2 seconds to write notes, so I'm surprised I didn't catch that. But yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. My appetizer comes here when Carl tells Steve to set his hand on top of the yellow ribbon so he could like make a perfect bow tie of sorts. And I'm laughing at this song that Steve is singing, and while he's also suggestively gyrating his body. It was something like da da yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, the old oak tree. And to my surprise, it was that's actually a real song. It was a 1973 song by Tony Orlando and Dawn featuring Thelma Hopkins.
Oh, get out!
Yeah. Now, I'm okay with that reaction you just gave because I remember, what's his name? Peter Fitzsimmons, who played Alan in episode 4 of season 1. He had mentioned that Thelma Hopkins was a part of Tony Orlando and Dawn. I thought that it was like a minor guesting sort of backgroundy role that you would never really notice. Come to find out, Tony Orlando, lead male singer. Dawn is 2 female singers that are right behind him that are always with him. They were like official regular group. One of those female singers was Thelma Hopkins.
Get out.
Yeah, she was literally a regular part of a very popular pop group in the 1970s. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what Peter was talking about.
Oh my God, my mind is blown. Okay.
Yeah, she was one half of Dawn. Just to give you an idea of how they...
Dawn was one person.
Seriously, but just that gives you an idea of how women could be treated back in the day. 2 women were given the name of one.
That is so terrible.
It's Tony Orlando, and then these 2 women. We'll just collectively call you Dawn.
Okay, well, I'm happy that I know that now, and that's why Thelma is such a great singer.
Yeah. So now it makes sense how she's given that treatment that I've seen other stars in sitcoms being given. Because, like in the opening credits of sitcoms, where when they get to the last cast member, it's usually like, and this actor starring as this character. But nobody else gets that treatment where they get both name and character. So they only tend to do that for, at the time, like the biggest stars going into a show. And it looks like when Family Matters started, at least, Thelma Hopkins appeared to be the biggest star from her history with Tony Orlando and Dawn. So
it's so crazy how they have this casting order, but from what we see as the audience, it is not reflected in the show at all. Because Harriet's number 1 on the list, and we forget that Harriet is supposed to be the main character here. And Thelma, I think, was number 6 on the list from Jalil's book. Like, she was like 6 or 7. So it's like, what? Y'all did some weird stuff here.
Yeah, seriously. So now we wrap up this cold open here with Steve causing major Winslow house damage again, where Carl needs to make an adjustment to the present ribboning, and Steve is like, no, big guy, let me help you out with that. And Carl's like, no, I got it. So they do a physical tug back and forth, and then the present gets flown out behind them through the glass window, breaks the glass. And Steve says his catchphrase that, oddly enough, he just hasn't been saying too often lately, nervously points at the window. Did I do that?
They were still trying out the catchphrase, trying to figure out what worked. It is funny that this is the exact same window that they broke in season 1.
The party episode, is that the same
Yes, it is the exact same window that the Grey New Boat went through.
window? I feel so bad for it. I think it needs therapy for all the trauma it's been getting.
It needs something.
Oh my God. But you know what? I noticed a big audience laugh after that. Did I do that? And that's the biggest audience laugh that I've seen from that line. Because usually with the other ones, the other readings of that line, it's just been meh. But this one, the audience was there for it.
It's picking up. Urkel fever is starting around this time.
Here we go into scene one. And as we go into the living room and the kitchen as well, I mean, we are being introduced to the man who would eventually become a very important figure in Harriette and Rachel's life. What do you think about this scene one?
So I love that we get Carl doing something that other people do. He's working out, but he cheats on his count in his workout. And I just scream because I'm like, this is hilarious.
My first thought going into this was like, what in the world? Do my eyes deceive me? Carl Winslow, of all people, doing push-ups? What's going on? And yeah, to your point, you know, most people, if they were, I guess, athletic enough, they would actually go up and down as they're counting to do, you know, to count the actual push-ups. But Carl is just struggling with one push-up, but he just keeps on counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's very, very Officer Winslow.
It is, and he doesn't have a drop of sweat on him. So it's like, Carl, you just started and you're already cheating.
Yeah, I wonder if you were like me and you thought that like a family member was going to come into the room and make a fat joke associated with this, but it didn't happen like that. It was just a throwaway before we got introduced to the big character in the episode.
I was waiting for Steve to come in at some point, like if he actually went down in the push-up position. And then, of course, we get Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. He comes in, doorbell rings, Carl answers, the stranger at first. And there's studio audience round of applause, as I mentioned in the beginning, for this stranger man. And I'm like, oh, is he a famous guy in real life? Let me take a look. Boop, 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 boop. Wikipedia. And I was surprised to see, after looking at the information, that he got the applause that he did. Because I feel like that applause is usually reserved for somebody who was in like one big TV show or movie that you've heard of and he's so iconic in. Paul Winfield, the actor, seems to be known for a variety of things. I'm going to read you some credits and you let me know if anything pops out at you. He was known for his portrayal of a Louisiana sharecropper who struggles to support his family during the Great Depression in the landmark 1972 film Sounder.
Seen Sounder.
Oh,
I had to watch it in school.
Oh, had to. So was that a good experience or no?
No, it's not one of those films that I like because I don't like those films that talk about the bad side of being black.
Yeah. So is that heavy of a film? Paul Winfield got an Academy Award nomination for that. He actually portrayed Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1978 television miniseries King.
I saw that.
Oh, was he a good one in that one?
Yeah, he was a good actor. I mean, he's a good actor, and I know I've seen him, so King is one of them.
There you go. I'm sorry, I named like 2 things in a row that's like traumatic for Black people, and you're just like, oh my God, John, I'm over it.
He's a struggle actor. Like the things I remember him were not happy things.
Oh no, darn. But I think I'm gonna. How about Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan?
Well, yeah, he's the Wrath of Khan. That's a happy one. That is a happy one. Yes.
It's only good to be Black if you're in space.
Yes.
All right. The Terminator. I don't know who he was, but he was in the Terminator as somebody, as something.
God, he is in Terminator.
What was he? Was he an important character? Maybe.
God, I think he's a police officer or something. He's in the first Terminator, and I want to say it's right before Schwarzenegger says that he'll be back.
Okay.
For like the first time in the movie, I think. Oh my God.
Let me see what his character's name is. Paul Winfield, Terminator character. He was Lieutenant Ed Traxler.
I just found a picture. Yep, I remember him. I just found the picture of him.
Awesome. All right. So there are probably people in the studio audience at Family Matters there that knew him for that. He was also in L.A. Law, Terminator wasn't a TV show, but L.A. Law, another TV show like The King Show. And he was in 24 episodes of the sitcom 227, starring Jackie and Marla Gibbs. He and Peter Fitzsimmons also talked about guest starring on that show. And Paul Winfield received 4 nominations overall, winning in 1995 for a guest role, 1994 guest role in Picket Fences. Do you know what that is? Because I don't.
Don't know what that is, but yes, I'm happy you got an Emmy.
There you go. So I'm so happy that he has at least one positive association for you, because I was naming like every depressing Black racial thing, and then Terminator. Best for last.
Yeah, it's a movie about a future robot killing people. It's the highlight.
But is he? But is the future robot killing Black people? Really? Oh no!
Black people always die in Terminator.
Sucks. All right. Anyway, so this stranger man greeting Carl like they're old friends reuniting. Carl is greeting this man like he don't know who the fuck he is. But I do love the greeting though. My favorite line ever to greet somebody: "Carl, how are you, you big old piece of business?"
It's a good opening. You can't help but smile at this person if they talk to you that way.
Yeah. I don't want to make fun of someone's weight, so I will never be able to say that. And there's just something funny about the line, big old piece of business. Can you imagine calling anybody a big old piece of business?
I'm going to say it now, so yes.
Okay, good. I won't be offended if you call me that from now on, every time we do episodes. All right, so now we get the introduction. This man introduces himself as Jimmy Holmes, and Carl is pretending that he recognizes him, like, "Oh, Jimmy!" And Jimmy is like, "Yeah, Carl, I'm Lee Holmes's father." And Carl, again, pretending, "Oh, yeah, I remember you." And then when Jimmy turns his back to sit down, Carl gave that face that I kind of suspected he would give, which is like, I don't know I still don't know who the fuck you are. Have you ever been like that with relatives or people from like your childhood where they are like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad to see you." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure, I know you."
Anytime I see somebody from high school, they're like, "Andrew." And I look at them, I'm like, "Oh, okay." I don't know who you are, but okay, we're here.
Yeah. Like, okay, thanks. Hi. Are you bringing me food? Are you bringing me my mail? Like, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Yes, what service is provided by this greeting? Because I have no idea who you are.
What benefit? So my dessert, one of the few desserts I had, Carl going into the kitchen to fix Jimmy a drink, and Harriet's there. And Carl is just panicking to Harriet, like, "Harriet, there's a guy in there, and I don't know who he is, and I don't want to tell him that I don't recognize him, because if I do that, then I'll look like a jerk." And then Harriet, the best insult comedy wife line to come back with, "Well, if he remembers you, he's used to you looking like a jerk."
Perfect line. She gave great delivery for that.
I agree. And did you notice that transition from Carl and Harriet in the kitchen to when Carl and Harriet both are in the living room with Jimmy? Because somehow they added like this sort of "I Dream of Jeannie" magic sound effect, and it was very quick, and right, it made no sense.
Made no sense. I was like, what is this sound and what is this transition? They're just walking through a door.
Yeah. But we literally didn't see him walk through a door. The sound effect would make you think that they teleported from the kitchen to the living room.
Yeah. Now that I think of it, you would think that they just appeared. Like, we're here.
There's George Jetson and his what was George Jetson's wife's name?
Oh no, Wilma is Fred.
They were yeah, the Jetsons and the Flintstones. It's so easy to get them confused because they're like similar-ish Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
They are what? Oh my God, because there's Judy the daughter, Roy.
Yeah.
What is his wife's name? Oh my God. It's just
George Jetson's wife. Hold on. Jane.
so forgettable.
That's what I was saying. But George, I mean, George can also be a forgettable name, right? But, you know, because of the goddamn patriarchy, of course we remember George Jetson.
We do. And I have a whole full commentary on the Jetsons. If you're interested one day, we can talk about it because I have some thoughts about that show.
Oh, no. Was it problematic rewatching it?
Tons. Even as a kid, it was problematic.
Damn. All right. We gotta get to that at some point. All right. So Carl introduces Harriet to Jimmy in the living room. Jimmy is oddly stunned by what a beautiful lady Harriet is. Harriet does not think much of it, and she's just delighted by the compliment. They sit down to have soft drinks, and Jimmy reveals that he's a bush pilot and in town to buy a float plane. Did you know what both a bush pilot and a float plane was.
Yes, that I actually knew. One from television and the other because I've been in one.
Yeah, again, I don't know anything. So, I'm discovering that a bush pilot is a person who flies small aircraft in remote areas, and a float plane is a seaplane with one or more slender floats mounted under the fuselage to provide more buoyancy. I don't want to get into what fuselage and buoyancy is because I don't know what that means either, but yeah, I guess I want to fly in the air now after hearing this information.
It's pretty cool. To simplify it, just imagine a plane with water noodles. You know the noodles that you float within the water?
Yeah.
Imagine a plane with those on its wheels.
All right, that's nice. So we get another moment of Jimmy creepiness as he's staring at Harriette in awe. Harriette just quietly is like, why are you staring at me like that? Jimmy then gets up to compliment the decor of the house. Carl nervously brags that, hey, yeah, I remember what it was. So Jimmy was like, oh, yeah, nice house that you got here. And Carl, I guess, was just in a bit of nervousness. He was like, oh, yeah, it is great. I bought that red thing over there. No, I think Jimmy was asking what it was. And Carl was like, nobody knows.
Yeah, I tried to Google what that red thing was. And I was like, what is it? Is it a gong? Is it like felt? Like, what is it? But the funny part, just before we go to the red thing, when he was staring at Harriette, that's when I figured out what the episode was. And I was like, please tell me I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm wrong. As soon as he was staring at her, I was like, that's her dad. In my head, I was like, that's her dad. And I'm like, please tell me I'm wrong because this will make it so corny if it is.
So if I was you going in cold to the episode, the way that Jimmy was looking at Harriette, I would have thought maybe a past lover that Harriette did not remember. Maybe just like a long ago, like we were sweethearts in the 5th grade, and now I've come to win you back, woman.
I can see him being a past lover. I wouldn't give him like 5th grade only because this man looks like he's 90. So that means Harriette would have not even been a thought at that moment.
He's not that old. I would take him, I think he was maybe in his 50s when this episode came out, something like that. 1939 was his born year, Paul Winfield's. I don't know if you're good at math. I mean, 50s-ish.
Yeah, he'd be like 50, 60, something like that.
Yeah.
I would still be like, Harriette, what were you doing? Sugar daddy.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that red thing looked like a gong, because literally in my notes, I said, you know what? It kind of gives me dull red grandmotherly gong.
Grandmother gong.
Yeah, because like it has like the color scheme, the whole texture around it. It just reminds me of some like worn out furniture that my grandmother would have in her house. And then like I was like, oh yeah, it looks like a gong that you would see on the Gong Show. So I just thought of like, hey, maybe it's a grandmotherly gong.
That's what it looks like. But things back then, because you can tell that's like an older piece of furniture, always had random felt or like flower designs in the most random places on it. So I don't know what that thing was, but if somebody can tell us, please tell me, because I want to find one out.
Seriously. All right, so we have Rachel coming in carrying a shit ton of bagged up food from an event that she had at Rachel's place. That did not turn out well. God, I hope I have the pronunciation of this right. Osco-Busco night? Osco-Busco?
Osco-Busco? I don't know how to say it. Oscomeyer.
What? We're literally like Carl right now in this episode, because Carl was like, what? Osco-Boo-Boo?
Heard of it before, but I did not know what it was. I was like, I've heard it. I feel like a Bugs Bunny cartoon said it because it sounded funny to kids.
Yeah, right? So I think it was Carl and Harriette that didn't know what that meant. Jimmy was like, oh, of course I know what that means. And it basically was the same thing as the definition that I found online, which is it's an Italian dish made with veal shank containing marrowbone, and it's stewed in wine with vegetables and seasonings. First thought I had in mind was, Rachel, I don't think you know your audience, because anytime I've looked at Rachel's place, it has that very comfort food, laid back, casual diner vibe. And I would expect something like an Osco-Busco to be in like some like uppity, expensive, say, Chez Josephine kind of restaurant.
That's what I was expecting. When they said what it was, I was like, are you serving this in a kid's restaurant? Like, what?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because, like, we've only seen, like, what, teenagers at Rachel's place? Like, we've never seen anybody over the age of 15 in there.
Right. We've only seen kids. And the only thing I've seen is burgers and fries. Because who's that's making this?
Right? Burgers and fries every day of the week. And then all of a sudden, Saturday night, Osco Busco. And
We're gonna fancy it up for the kids.
yeah, and the kids are just like, wait, what? And they're just looking at it like it's green beans.
They're like, we don't know what part of this to eat, and there's a bone in my food. What are we doing?
Yep. So Jimmy offers to help Rachel carry the leftover Osco Busco in the kitchen, and it's just now that I'm noticing that Jimmy's got on some very sharp-heeled cowboy boots. This man is from the country.
As soon as I saw his cowboy boots, I was like, typical for an old man from the South.
Yeah, he's from the South. Did he say he's from the South?
He's from the South from what I picked up. He is from the South.
Yeah. All right, so Carl made me laugh when he kept a polite smile as Jimmy was like walking into the kitchen, and then Jimmy was fully gone, he just turns back to Harriette with a frown like, hell is that guy?
I love Carl's facial expressions in this episode. They are so good. It just makes you laugh.
Reggie knows how to act. Reggie knows how to act. My God. Oh, man. And you know what? It's good. It's sad that, like, he does have to take a back seat to Jaleel as Steve Urkel at times, a lot of times as we go on. But, yeah, whenever you get those moments where you're reminded of his comedic brilliance, it's just like, I hope you have as good of a time on the show as we're having watching you, Reggie.
I hope so, too, because there's something about him. His acting is just so genuine. You just want to keep watching. You can't turn away.
Yeah, he does clumsy, goofy dad so well, and heartwarming dad so well, especially. Are you ready to go into scene 2?
Let's get it.
All right, we're in the living room. So what did you think about this scene? Because I think essentially the whole theme of it is Jimmy just playing charming grandpa to the whole Winslow family as he's telling them stories about his time as a pilot.
So I picked up my phone at this point in the episode and prepared to call 911. But then I realized that it was a television family, because why the fuck is this man in your house holding on to the star of the show, Little Richie, and y'all don't know who he is? We have some questions.
I guess over the course of time, from one scene to another, they just got to know Jimmy like he's a family member. And then boom, Little Richie is just like, I love this man. Tell me stories, fake grandpa.
Something's going on, because this man is a random man off the street and y'all didn't know him. But for the sake of the show, I did love that I think everybody except Mama Winslow, I don't remember seeing.
She's not here.
And so everybody else was in the scene, and something about it was super warm and comforting. And I think because I remember him as an actor from shows where bad things happen, it was kind of relaxing. But then at the same time, I was like, something's about to happen here.
Right. What did you think about Steve just jumping in the middle of Jimmy's story to, for whatever reason, brag about his mathematical knowledge of, like, converting kilometers to measurements? I think anytime Jimmy was like, oh, as a pilot, I did this and it was this kilometers, and Steve was just jumping in like 5.33 miles. It's like, okay, all right, chill, we get it.
Yeah. Did you see Laura's face? She looked at him like, would you shut up?
Right? The hero of the day is speaking, Steve. Go home and eat your anchovy paste. My God.
It's so funny when you see him, because the look on Steve's face, he's kind of like, but I'm giving you knowledge. Like, he's not like, I'm sad or like, excuse me. He's like, but this is knowledge.
It is. This is America, goddammit. We don't measure in kilometers. We measure in miles. I just want to give you that. Oh, my God. This is not Canada, Jimmy. Straighten up.
Oh, it's hilarious. Urkel was translating the entire conversation.
Oh, did you notice Eddie's very loud Earth, Wind, and Fire color vibes tucked in bottom button-down shirt that he had with the jeans? Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Eddie was ready to perform in a concert.
There you go. But unfortunately, he only was featured. I think once he was asking Jimmy at the end of his story, like, oh, hey, you got any more? Like, I think that's literally the only time we got anything from Eddie this episode.
Those were his only lines. He didn't say anything else, and he did not come back.
Yeah. I'm wondering what you thought about how Jimmy presented this story, because the way it ended was making me wonder the legitimacy of it. So if I recall, Jimmy mentions being confronted by a grizzly bear. And then, of course, you have Steve blurting out the Latin term for grizzly bear. Wow, it's an Ursus arctos horribilis.
Steve is so good.
He's something, all right. He's something. So he builds up the story by claiming that he pulled out a knife on this bear. The bear tore it apart like a toothpick. And then as, little Richie's like, what happened next? Jimmy playfully picks up your star of the show, Andrew, and says, he ate me. And then that's when Eddie's like, oh man, that's cool. Anything else, Jimmy? So now I'm wondering, did Jimmy just make up this story from the get-go, or did he just embellish the end of it because he didn't want to make it boring? Because I'm guessing the boring part is that he escaped the bear.
So I was laughing because they made Eddie ask the question, like, what happened next? Like, well, obviously he's not dead. So we know he's here. And what happened when he says he stabbed the bear in the chest with the knife and then the bear took it out? I was like, okay, Jimmy, you're exaggerating. I believed you with the bear up until the knife. I think you saw a bear from a distance. The bear got scared and ran away, but did a good ending.
Yeah, he did. Because, he's an entertainer. He's a man with a plan. I mean, after all, he's pretending to be somebody else. So I think he's just staying in character, trying to live out the performance of a lifetime. God, that's such a negligent parent.
It really is. Like, Jimmy. Since I figured it out, but it wasn't confirmed until later in the episode, when I found out, I was like, you lying piece of shit.
Oh my God. All right. So Jimmy says he better head out and hit the trail. And I think it was Harriette and Rachel, oddly enough, who were like, no, come on, stay the night at our house. And then, Jimmy's like, no, I don't want to be any trouble. Carl says the only thing that's going to be troubling, sir, is this couch that you're about to sleep on because it is made of granite. And Jimmy actually made me chuckle a little bit when he was like, now, Carl, how would you know that? And then that's when Carl was like, Carl gave an amusing callback. He was like, well, Harriette made me sleep on it after I bought the red thing.
Yeah. It was so good.
Scene 3, the big reveal. Jimmy is not who he says he is. What did you think?
I'm going to tell you the most upsetting thing for me in this entire episode happens in this scene. I was so angry, I wanted to turn off my television, but I muscled through it. Jimmy laid on that couch with his fucking boots on. What is your blood?
I was thinking that. I had that in my notes. That's the first thing. I was like, oh my God, Andrew's going to say the boots, because that was my thing too. I was like, boy, take your shoes off.
When he leaned all the way back, and I'm like, so you're just going to leave those on my couch?
You're right. Oh my God. I'm so happy that you said that. Oh my God. All right. So, well, first of all, why have a guest stay on a couch that it's not comfortable? That's one thing. That's weird. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay, Jimmy, you have dad slippers offered to you right there on the floor by the couch. How about you be polite, take your fucking dirty ass cowboy boots on and put those slippers on at least. But yeah, it was odd. I know he was trying out the couch for 2 seconds, but I just thought, etiquette, Jimmy, etiquette.
Now, I have met men who wear cowboy boots, and there are two types of men who wear cowboy boots. Ones who wear them with socks and ones who wear them without socks. Yep. If you were wearing them without socks, keep those on. I don't want to smell the smell that come out of that boot. But Jimmy, those boots were fresh and new, so they probably didn't smell bad. You could have taken them off and got a little more comfortable. But I do get why they offered him the couch, because he's like, I'm going to go find a hotel to sleep in. So, Jimmy, you were kind of begging for a handout here at this point.
And my next note is just getting into the dramatic point of all. Jimmy just kind of gets a little bit emotional with Carl and says, Carl, you really don't remember me, do you? Carl is like, no, I don't. And then Jimmy admits that his name is not really Jimmy Holmes. It's Jimmy Baines. I'm Harriette and Rachel's father. Boom. And then you have the audience. Did you hear the audience audibly? They were in shock. Jimmy, you know what? Hey, Paul Winfield, I'll give him props. He knows how to put on an emotional face when he's revealing very uncomfortable news. Carl looks very much in shock. And then Oh, fuck social media. We close out this scene. You know that signature dramatic suspenseful reveal music that Family Matters uses that I've seen so many people use on social media. Da, 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 da. Like everybody's been satirizing like that moment or that music as a way to convey like, oh my God, 90s sitcom moment when you find out that your best friend is using drugs in the parking lot.
So, so I try not to burst into a laughing fit because thank you, Delicious, for making my video that uses that sound when I went out to find my black job. Such a success.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling that you were one of those people, and that's fine. I mean, it's a viral trend, and I think it's still a viral trend, right? Are people still using that music?
Everybody still uses it. And oh my God, that helped me get through the Black Jobs day so well.
Yeah. So I don't know. Were you like? Did you have that exact thought when you heard the music closing out this scene?
I did. And I had one other thought. Carl is better than me because as soon as somebody says to me, I'm not the name that I gave you, I'm ready to fight or get you the hell out of my space. I don't care what the reason is. We're not getting more conversation. Get out. You couldn't even tell me your real name.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts on this scene with I think what is part of my main course. I mean, this idea of parents who have been gone out of their child's lives for a long time, who just don't know how to re-enter. Like maybe rule number one, don't pretend to be somebody else. That's just I'm going to object to that. I mean, you want to make amends with your adult children. Yes, it's going to be hard work, but I don't think that starting off by doing it under the guise of somebody else is going to make it any better. It's just going to make you seem sketchy, suspicious, and I think it's going to make hearing the news harder because then it kind of adds to this idea that you're not a genuine, honest human being.
Yeah, you are a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Like you're a liar. Like this would upset me more than anything if somebody came back into my life and pretended like they were somebody else. So, bitch, you think I'm a joke, is what you're saying.
Really?
Like, if you think you're going to come to me, you think I'm a joke, which means I need to talk to you.
So for scene 4, we go back into the living room. And I mean, I'm with Carl because I think Carl, if I'm not mistaken, he was just in disbelief and denial. And he's just like, okay, you need to leave. What is going on? Harriette and Rachel's dad, to my knowledge, they died in the Korean War. And then Jimmy was like, yeah, I did die in the Korean War. And I don't know. I mean, I guess he just said that matter-of-factly as if Carl is going to expect him to believe a dead man is just standing there in front of him. I mean, I'm on Carl's side. I'm just like, stranger, go find a hotel somewhere. I think we're done.
Get out. How did we get? This is why this family had a car go through the house, screwdrivers lost, Steve Urkel, because y'all don't know how to close your damn door.
They don't. I mean, I you know what? Now that I think about it, thank you for bringing that point up. Any family that's willing to accept Steve Urkel in their house over and over again, despite him just being who he is, of course they're going to be the type of family that's like, sure, old stranger who claims to be the long lost dad of these two people that live in this house. Okay, we'll try to figure something out.
Yeah, we'll just figure it out. Come on in. No, I refuse. In Chicago?
Yeah, right? Of all places, Chicago. Oh my God. All right. Anyway, so Carl is asking Jimmy for proof that he's really Harriette and Rachel's father. And Jimmy names all these facts about, like, you know, things like Harriet's scar from when she fell off her tricycle. And I think Jimmy was mentioning a favorite stuffed bear from Rachel when she was a kid. And then Jimmy gives us the backstory we need, which was he got married and had kids at 18 with Rachel and Harriet's mother, Darlene. And I believe it had gotten too much for him, and he just, him and Darlene couldn't make it work. Jimmy walked out. And Darlene, to save face for the children, lied to Harriette and Rachel and claimed that the dad got killed in the Korean War because, of course, Darlene didn't want Harriette and Rachel thinking that their father didn't love them and ran away. And I want to get your thoughts about that whole backstory that Jimmy explained, and also Carl confronting Jimmy about walking out on his wife and kids like that, because despite the fact that personal information, viewer and listener, I haven't seen my dad in 15 years. He left the family. In this situation, though, it's kind of different. I'm actually wondering if Carl can give just a little bit of grace to Jimmy because that is a lot. Like wife, children, all that stuff. I mean, when you're 18 years old, what kind of emotional maturity you have? That much. And I don't think you have that much of an ability for long-term foresight. So even though I could understand Carl being like, man, stay by your wife and kids. Yeah, that's like the obvious moral thing to do. But God, I mean, for Jimmy to just put that all on his plate at 18 years old, I would imagine that as an 18-year-old, I would not think twice if it was like, I'm thinking short term. It's like, okay, God, this is too much. And I got to run away. Like 42-year-old, if you're like 42 years old, then okay, I'm probably going to scold you for it. But 18 is just like, okay, well, yeah, you're definitely too young to be having wife and kids. So of course, I kind of understand why you would just do the irresponsible thing and run out because you're still a child by then. So anyway, what are your thoughts on all that?
So for someone who has been abandoned and it's really like just like stabbed a knife in between my rib cage.
Yeah.
My only emotion I have is Jimmy, fuck you.
Right.
I don't care about your fucking age. I don't care about what you were going through. You brought other life into this world and you left it to the wolves. So you get no sympathy for me. There would be no sympathy coming my way. I'm not trying to hear or understand you at this point in time. And to know that you are going to hurt the person that I love in an unimaginable way by your selfish actions is another reason why we have a problem.
Right. Okay. That's a completely understandable reaction. I get that. I get that. And this all ties into my main course. Carl was asking the important question to Jimmy, which is, why are you here now? Jimmy's response, I wanted to see my kids. I wanted to give my grandson a piggyback ride. And I'm just sitting here looking at that and I'm like, dude, when you've been when you've been gone for as long as you've had, you got to give a much more better answer than that. I mean, that's the kind of answer you give if it's like, I don't know, it's like a Saturday afternoon, you live 2 or 3 hours away from your family and you want to see them for a weekend or whatever. But I mean, God, you haven't seen Harriette and Rachel since they were 1 and 3 and they look to be maybe 30s, 40s right now. You got some explaining to do. You can't just say that, you just want, no, you got some explaining to do.
Yeah, we need a full explanation with you explaining everything in every uncomfortable detail. Because that just, oh, well, I just want to see them. Well, then you don't care about them because this isn't going to be just I just saw my dad today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's when parents have decided suddenly that they want to be in their children's lives many years after they have not been in their children's lives, there's just, I don't know, they just seem to have this sort of naive epiphany moment that, all right, we can make this happen, right? We could like talk things over. We can meet up like this weekend, right? And what they don't understand is from the child's perspective, it's like, no, it's not going to be that easy. I've been used to not having you in my life day after day after day for this many years. And for you to just suddenly come in and want a relationship, that's going to be drop shock. That's going to be traumatizing. It's going to be very layered.
You've had to build a life without this person.
Yeah.
You've had to work your way around to just be happy enough to get out of bed each day. And now you think you can just waltz in here? We can't do that. It's you walked out of this room as a fart, and we have to talk about the fact that you were a fart. Like, we had to sit in that, and you can't just come in here and be like, oh, hey, everybody. No, you farted. We got to talk about that.
Right. Oh, my God. And here we go. Jimmy, I mean, ironically, here he is saying, that, maybe he shouldn't tell Harriette and Rachel the truth because he would rather have them see him as a hero and not a heel. And we know the truth, Jimmy. We know that you're going to become even more of a heel by just coming into their lives like this and then walking out again without them not knowing the truth. It's like, what are you doing?
Hey, that is the most selfish thing I have ever heard somebody say. I'm just like, well, I just want to just come in and sneak in. Meanwhile, your children think you're dead. You don't think you owe a little bit of just Hey, y'all, I'm not dead. Okay.
Well, thank God for Carl for giving Jimmy a conscience, because Carl ends this scene with a mic drop dramatic line. He's just like, I think this was on his way up to bed. He was just like, I see, Jimmy, but it seems to me that once again, you're only thinking of yourself. And then he walks away. And then we have the Leroy Fire music again as Jimmy looks emotional and like, maybe I am a dick.
He's getting his inner like dick monologue going where he's like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I didn't realize traveling all this distance to surprise my children with more lies was going to be something bad. There's like, there's one moment where Carl, I called him Jake. It's Jimmy. Jimmy makes fun of Carl being bald in the scene.
Yes.
And that gave such a good moment of comedic relief because it was starting to get super heavy and it was like, okay, thank you for this little joke. It made me laugh.
Yes. I remember that moment so much, and I wonder if I could like remember it word for word. But yeah, but I think it was something along the lines of Carl just being in sort of this panicky disbelief, like, "What are you doing, Jimmy? Like, are you trying to pull my hair here?" And I think Jimmy said something like, "Not really."
Like, I can see you've done it enough or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I get what you mean. I get what you mean. It was a bit of much needed comic relief. Scene 5 is much more needed comic relief. We have Laura and Steve in the kitchen, and Steve clearly idolizes Jimmy because Steve sees Laura admiring him from that time that Jimmy was telling the story to the family. What are your thoughts about this scene?
Laura starting off the scene singing money, money, money. I don't know why it was so funny that this kid is going to her first job just like, I'm about to make all this money. I just laughed because it was so cute.
It is. And good for her because, God, making like something like $50 or $80 every week or every 2 weeks, that could be a lot of money for a kid. To all the adults listening with kids, please allow your kids to bask in making money, no matter how small the amount may be to you. I say this, Andrew, because when I was a kid, actually, no, I was sort of a kid, but also an adult. This was the summer after my freshman year of college when I was working at a summer camp as a counselor. And I think I made like $200 every 2 weeks. And you could imagine, like, I'm not living on my own. Like, I'm at home. I'm kind of dependent on my family still. So that, to me, is a lot of money. I remember my aunt hearing my salary, and she was just like, oh, that's not too much. And I'm like, to you, but to me, who doesn't have to pay any bills? It's like, I'm rich.
You feel like you have gold in your pocket. And if you're like me, your parents made you pay them rent. And oh my gosh, did it hit them so bad when I got my revenge.
Oh, really? What was your revenge? You moved on?
And I never, ever buy them Christmas presents. And they have wondered for years. They were like, why don't you buy us Christmas presents? It wasn't until 2 Christmas ago. I was like, because y'all made me pay rent on my first job.
You're like, bitch, y'all should have saved all the rent money I gave you and bought yourself a Christmas present.
You got months of presents out of me, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, like, the last few months or so, maybe the last year or so that I still lived at home with my mom and my siblings, I started contributing to rent because, you live with a single mom and you're making money. At a certain point, you become guilty and you're like, let me chip in. Laura, going back to this scene, even though she's probably making like $2 an hour with tips, I am gonna just bask in her celebration because, man, there's nothing like you're a kid, you're making money for the first time, you think you got it made, you could buy all the candy in the world, or in Laura's case, maybe what does she buy? Makeup, perfume, clothes, I don't know, whatever she buys. So money, money, money to you, Laura. And
Laura, she's happy.
And good for the OJs for making a great song. I don't like that it's the theme song of The Apprentice of all shows, but good for the OJs for making a song aside from that.
Yeah, I haven't been able to listen to it ever since 2016.
Understandable. Your thoughts about Steve? Oh, well, first of all, Laura, she's singing money, money, money as she's about to go out to the back porch door. She's dressed up for work. She's about to go to work. And then from the back porch window from outside, she sees just like this fake bear head And Laura is understandably, she's like, "How is that?" And then we open the door to receive to reveal that Steve is wearing this big bear skin coat outfit with a bear head on top. No, you don't approve of this Steve Bear outfit?
It is so ridiculous that I couldn't stop laughing as soon as he opened the door.
I was slow. It took me a while to realize that Steve was, besides the bear coat outfit, Steve was dressed exactly like Jimmy. And aside from the Amelia Earhart pilot's cap as well. But Steve had like a caramel colored hunter's jacket. He had a red flannel shirt underneath. He had the jeans, the cowboy boots like Jimmy. And Steve is just swerving his body side to side to Laura, like, "Look at me, baby. Don't I look like a fucking hot, manly man that's ready for the outdoors?"
It was so funny. He had the bolo tie on, but it was so tight on his shirt, it looked like it was choking him.
Oh, no.
I was just screaming the entire time as he does this walk, and it's sliding on the floor in these moves.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve is ready. Steve is ready to go to Dallas and have a drink at the country club.
Oh, he would fit right in. Oh, man.
Yeah. So Steve, to impress Laura, he's making up some story about like riding his bike down Oak Street, and he notices a grizzly bear from behind him at the neighbor's rose bush. And of course, he's telling this lie to impress Laura because he saw how like admired Laura was looking at Jimmy when he was telling his own grizzly bear story. And yeah, Steve is just doing a swagger walk to audience approval. They're just howling. They're loving it. And I think this was when Steve was like, "Oh, yeah, baby, I'm on the wild side."
It was hilarious. I don't know why, though. He turned his face away from the cameras when he first started the walk. I don't know why he did that. That sticks out. It's in my notes. It's just a very weird moment. And I think maybe somebody said something because he immediately switches and looks towards the audience, but towards the end of the walk.
He could have forgotten a blocking note from the director, Rich Correll. And then he just course corrected himself in the moment. And if that's exactly what happened, then good on you, Jaleel, for learning to switch it up like that. But I will say, even though it is supposed to be a fun moment, like, "Hey, yeah, look at me, baby," at the heart of it is just a poor kid who wants to be someone else to impress the girl that doesn't like him, but he wants to pay attention to him.
Weirdly thought that she would be wanting to date somebody dressed as an old man. That is the part that I love.
"I can be your sugar cowboy daddy from the South. Come on, baby." Anyway, so Laura's telling him that what will really impress her is if he like goes home now. And Steve surprisingly just says, "Okay," and then turns around and like, okay, yeah, Laura puts the heavy bear coat on him to take out, and Steve clumsily exits. But I was kind of surprised that Steve just took it as, "Okay, I'll leave," because usually Steve doesn't listen to Laura and finds some goofy way to stay non-consensually. But now it's like, "Okay, sure, I'll listen to you, baby."
This time Steve was like, "Oh, we're on a time constraint. Okay, I get it. We got it."
And I gotta say, I might be surprised here. I think that's the last time we see Urkel.
That is. He does not come back.
Yeah. When I was watching this episode, I was thinking about your comment from the Life of the Party recap, where you had mentioned, this is the moment that Family Matters officially becomes the Urkel show. And it's really kind of hard to tell with season 2, because you get blips of moment like Life of the Party where it's like, "Oh, yeah, Urkel show right here." But then you get episodes like these where it's like, "Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I think we're still seeing the Family Matters from season 1. So season 2, it's like, what do you call it? What's this? It's a
roller coaster.
Yeah, peaks and valleys, roller coaster. It's playing around with becoming Urkel, but not quite yet. And I'm loving it because to me, it's like a balance. It's like, okay, yeah, we get some nice, fun Urkel moments here and there, but we also get that Winslow family deepness that I love. So I'm liking that. No, you disagree?
I'm learning to like it. I think it's still, for me, it's like, okay, well, we could have done without Urkel there. But then other times I'm like, okay, Urkel, I get why you're here. But like this episode, it's a great balance of Urkel. Like we don't get oversaturated with the outlandishness, even though the story itself is very outlandish.
Scene 6, we go into the living room, and as I Oh, yeah, this is the bombshell. This is where Harriet and Rachel get the news. What were your thoughts about this scene, Sick?
So Richie is starting us off very well. He's
Yeah.
leading everybody in the scene. And I don't know if you picked up on it. Richie is the one who set up the scene structure because he starts off by not wanting Jimmy to leave.
Yeah.
He gives him a very heartfelt look that just drew in everybody.
This is true. Richie does that, cute little grandson thing in relation to Jimmy, who's playing the grandpa figure. Jimmy exhibiting just accurate, tired grandpa energy because you know that this is like the 100th piggyback ride that he's had to give little Richie. And Jimmy is like, all right, God, man, kid, you're too damn cute. I love to play with you, but also I'm like 75 fucking years old. Maybe it's time for the saddle to rest for a little while. But you kind of know that he doesn't want to break this kid's heart, so maybe he's gonna kind of pretend to keep going. But Harry and Rachel kind of well-timed, they come downstairs and they're like, okay, little Richie, leave Mr. Holmes alone. He has to leave now. But Richie is just like, oh, we're having fun, right? And, Jimmy, even though I thought he was going to concede and still play with little Richie, he does say, like, yeah, this cowboy's got to ride off to the sunset. And, this is where little Richie gives the sad face. I was thinking about you. Were you because the audience clearly was affected. They were like, "Aw," like as Richie just says, "I'm gonna miss you," and he hugs Jimmy. You can tell Jimmy's emotional face. He's moved by the hug with little Richie. What were your thoughts going into that?
So this lead up to this, I thought we were like on like it could fall one way or the other. I was like, okay, either Jimmy is about to die right now because he's out of breath, and he's in Richie's like, let's keep going, and he's out of breath, and I'm like, oh, he's either going to die,
Yeah,
and then they're gonna find out that this is their death,
yeah, right.
or he's gonna live, and it's about to get real heavy.
Guess which option they went with?
They kept him alive, which I think helped with the story, but I would not have been opposed if they killed Jimmy at that moment.
It did seem like he was about to drop dead of a heart attack. You know what? Harry and Rachel thought that whole Simon Says thing with Aunt Chloe dying from the Simon Says game at the retirement home, they thought that was traumatic. Watch.
Figured it out. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm telling you this because I woke up at 2 a.m., no joke, and started laughing. So the joke, she was doing Simon Says, and when she said Simon Says, her heart stopped and she fell on the ground. That's why when the paramedics got there, they thought everybody else was dead because they thought she was still playing the game.
Oh, okay. It all makes sense now. Oh, God. Yeah, for you watching and listening, if you have not listened to our recap of, God, what the fuck was it? What was that episode? Was it last week that we recapped that episode?
Because last week we recapped it, I think, and I forgot what the entire episode is.
Yeah, I forgot what it was called too, but I know that was the B story. Oh, actually, no, it was the episode that went out this week, as like right now as we are recording this. This is the Busted episode. Yeah, season 2, episode 19, Busted. Check out our recap of that if you have a chance. It's hilarious. All right. So the audience, I mean, little Richie and Jimmy, they're kind of drawing out the hug a little bit. They're trying to get the feels out of the audience. The audience is drawing out the awes. It's a touching moment. Such sitcom-y sentiment. And I almost thought, were you like me as Jimmy was getting to be on his way out the door? Did you think that we were going to be left with Jimmy never telling Harriet and Rachel? Did that option enter your mind?
It didn't, and the only reason why it didn't is because how Harriet and Rachel stood next to each other in the way that the setup is of the scene, and Jimmy's right in the center. I'm like, they're cuddled next to each other. They're preparing for an emotional moment. Jimmy's gonna tell them.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tag team emotional. Boom. Oh, God. All right. Well, Jimmy's taxi is outside, but Carl, he's coming inside from where the taxi is, and he tells Jimmy, last chance. And Jimmy drops that bombshell. He says, Harriet, Rachel, I am not Jimmy Holmes. I'm in fact Jimmy Baines, and I am your father. And then we hear some dramatic violin-y music, and it's interesting to see at least to me, maybe you thought differently, Harriette and Rachel seemed different in their reactions. Like Rachel seemed to take the more conventional, emotionally speechless look on her face. But I got the impression from Harriette that she had more of this like a disappointed, sassy look. Like, really? Oh, okay, we're doing this right now.
As soon as he said his last name, the look on her face was like, I knew it, bitch. It's like she looked at him like, oh, I hate you. All I saw was anger brewing in those eyes.
Yeah. But I will say, given how Harriette reacts in the next scene, like I would like to think that the look that she gave in this scene was a defense mechanism because last scene, I mean, what turns out to be the last scene of the show, she lets it all hang out. So before we get into that, I mean, anything else for that scene 6 moment?
You know what? That is it for that moment for me because I like that they didn't linger. They're like, bombshell reactions. We're going to the next scene.
Right, right. Did they have a blackout that represented a commercial break when? Okay, yeah, that would definitely make sense. Grab the cheese whiz, kids. Come back. This is gonna be intense.
I want cheese whiz now. Damn it.
Scene 7, going into the kitchen. But also, why would I put it in the kitchen when it's really in the back porch? It's like kitchen transitioning to the back porch. Yeah, I mean, Harriette and Rachel, they are reacting in real time to Jimmy telling this news. They're talking it over on the back porch. I have some thoughts about this. I'm curious about yours.
First, I have to say, y'all made me cry. I cried when I was watching this because I was like, wow, their emotional acting is a very, very good, like, pull on the scene. I would have been mad had this man who just told me he was my dad was sneaking and listening to my conversation after that.
Inappropriate.
The first thing I would have done is gotten up and thrown something at him.
Yeah, like, Jimmy, it has nothing to do with you. Like, this is between Harry and Rachel. You just gave them some heavy news. Let them process it. Let them talk it over. You being there sets up what I find to be emotional manipulation later on. But first, I mean, Harriette, as Rachel is going into the back porch to check in on her, Harriette is the complete opposite of what she was in the last scene. I mean, she had this very sassy demeanor that I guess I can take that as her just sort of like putting a stoic face, trying to hide her reaction on how she really felt. And we know how she feels now. I mean, she was just completely in tears, the tissue in hand. We get this emotional music that I feel like I would hear on the 80s soap opera Dallas, which I was a big fan of and still have DVDs of back in my home in Connecticut, where my mom is. I am reminded the way Harriette emotionally speaks about how she feels. I'm reminded of the Fight the Good Fight episode where she talks about the racism she's experienced after Carl and Harriette figure out how to deal with Laura's racist treatment in school. Somehow the way Jo Marie Payton gives these kind of monologues, it just makes me feel like I'm in a very intense Negro theater company stage production back in like the 40s or something. Because you see it, like the way she just gets up from that porch swing and she just stands by the railing outside and she just emotionally says, Rachel, he deserted us. And it's good acting from Jo Marie, but I also felt like I was watching A Raisin in the Sun or Fences, just any one of those like dramatic Black shows. I just wonder if it's the right kind of drama for Family Matters, because at the end of the day, it is a sitcom, and doing drama that's appropriate for a sitcom can be very hard to do. And I just felt like this was Jo Marie giving me a performance that I would have rather have seen her do in like a Broadway show. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It does, because in a Broadway show, you're acting towards the crowd.
Yeah.
In a sitcom, you're acting towards the camera.
Yeah.
And she kind of did give that like Shakespeare look, like he left us. And I wanted more. Like, if you were going to go that dramatic route, I wanted it big or go home. But because she did it in this muted way, it seemed like she was unsure of like what emotion to portray.
Interesting that you find it muted. I didn't find it muted at all. I don't know. I mean, I think it maybe just speaks more to Jo Marie Payton as an actress, but this monologue that she gave, the monologue that she gave about being subject to racism a few episodes ago, It's just the most intense drama that I've seen so far on Family Matters. And I am curious to see if we get more of those moments from Harriet, because Jo Marie can really act her ass off when she's given that sort of drama to work with.
Tell everybody you could never. And she had to show everybody, I am the actor and you are the actors.
Hey, she was supposed to be the star of the show, and she's letting you know, hey, bitch, it's not about Urkel right now. I'm going to give you something.
Mm-hmm. She knew what she was doing.
She was like, Tyler Perry in the future? See this right now?
Oh my God, Tyler Perry, I swear to God, you better not screw her over.
Seriously. Yeah, Tyler Perry at this point in 1991, I think he was on the way to putting up his first stage play in Atlanta. I think it was called I Can Do Bat All by Myself, or was it? No. I think it was some like religious title. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking all throughout this episode, the like Tyler Perry vibes, if there was anything about this episode that kind of struck me as a Tyler Perry thing. And then all of a sudden my mind went to, oh, what was Tyler Perry doing in 1991? And he was almost there. He was almost trying to get his first breakthrough play through. And I wonder if he watched Family Matters at the time and was just like, as God is my witness, I'm going to get that woman in my streaming comedy series 33 years later, even though nobody knew what streaming was back then.
He had a plan. I mean, Medea dressed awfully similar to Mama Winslow. I'm just saying. So he may have had a plan all along because he knew what his goal was. And he's like, one day I'm going to have.
There you go. Now, we know that Harriet is on the side of like, he just deserted us. Like, why is he here? Like, I don't know how to deal with this. But Rachel, what are your thoughts about Rachel's argument? And I think this sort of speaks to what I think is the very interesting way Rachel sees things, because Rachel is essentially like, well, Harriet, he's here now. Let's try to make amends. Let's try to meet him halfway.
Okay, so Rachel had the reaction of two things for me.
Yeah.
One, the reaction of people who got us here today, governmental wise, where the fuck we are.
Right.
Because, oh, you got to be nice. They're here. And then the other side that she represents that equally annoys me is, for some reason in the Black community, it's been pushed through multiple different sides of families and things that you have to forgive somebody just because they're a blood relative to you.
Yes.
That is not the case.
Yes. Andrew, automatically I'm thinking of what people on Reddit have had to say about the movie Soul Food. And I haven't watched that movie in such a long time, but I remember the commentary like saying that. And I think you had already said that movie is like so problematic. And is that kind of the reason? Does it go back into forgiving somebody who doesn't deserve to be forgiven?
It's forgiving people who don't deserve to be forgiven just because they're family. And it's also the irresponsibility of eating food that led to the death of your grandmother and then gathering around and eating the same food over again. We didn't learn. We did not learn.
Like, I gotta watch Soul Food again. I haven't watched that movie in such a long time. All I have is like vague memories of watching it when I was like in middle school and just being like, oh, hey, here's a charming, comforting, sort of dramatic Black movie on BET. Sure, why not? And now I'm pretty sure I'm gonna watch it and be like, oh God, Black people, what have we done?
The only scene I love is with the damn knife when she confronts her husband for cheating. Because everything else in that movie is so problematic where it's just like, this is what we're going to push as a good family movie.
I got to watch that again. And Jimmy is my junk food. Well, first of all, let's just say that whenever there's a dramatic moment on the back porch, I guess we have to have somebody from the kitchen listening in because we had Carl doing that a few episodes back when Harriet and Laura were talking about Laura feeling bad over like harshly rejecting Steve and Harriet being like, hey, he's a good boy. He loves you. And Harriet was talking to Laura in a sense where Carl was listening in and was just like, oh, I have not been attentive to my wife's needs. So that was then. And this is now, where Jimmy should not be listening in from the kitchen to what Harry and Rachel are saying. He should let them figure it out by themselves, and then he'll come in when asked. But no, he's he's thinking of himself. He's like, oh, are my daughters going to accept me? Let me listen in. Let me see if I can do something about it.
Why the hell are you in my kitchen?
Right?
Unsurprised. Like, you are a guest here. You're supposed to stay in the living room. And I would have been so incensed with anger. You're listening to what I'm supposed to be saying to my sister in confidence after you weren't here. Get out. Get out.
But he doesn't get out. What did you think about Rachel's plea to Harriette? She says that they should build a relationship with Jimmy because if they don't, they'll be making the same mistake that he did.
Now, Rachel's wrong.
Yes.
She's very wrong. The situation is completely different.
Absolutely.
But I do like, because there is going to be siblings in different scenarios. When something happens, they process it differently. One sibling may be like, fuck you. The other one may be like, hi. And it's just, everybody's different. So I like that they gave us that portrayal. But part of me was screaming like, Rachel, he abandoned you too. And we need to talk about this manipulation, because for some reason you let men manipulate you. And this one just walked in and it's happening again.
Oh, I wonder if she's got... Murtaugh might manipulate her in the next episode. I saw in the next episode that he's going to date her. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I wrote in my notes that no, Rachel, it is definitely not the same. Yeah, like you had mentioned, I mean, the Jimmy abandoned you for God knows how long, and he left you guys with, I would say, unaddressed trauma of not having a father figure, and then he just suddenly shows up on the doorstep, and you're full-grown adults at this point. You've moved on, you've lived plenty of life, and he pretends to be somebody else to find a way to eventually maybe be himself and be your father, just like that. I would understand if this is a situation if you say, fuck off, or at least say, Jimmy, give us some time, give us some space. This is a lot. This is not going to be resolved tonight. But, you know, this is a sitcom, so we know how this ends.
Right. We're probably never going to see Jimmy again. And I get what they were doing, but I would have liked a more realistic approach of, okay, thank you for saying what you had to say, but it's time for us to just take this in for a moment, because this is crazy. This is crazy. This random man just came out, he's your dad, and you're just going to accept him after he's manipulated you, listen to your conversations. And we can't forget the fact that he said their mom contacted him multiple times. So you had multiple times to turn around and be a good person, and you still chose not to be.
Yeah. He just has that epiphany at his old age. I'm not going to be here a while longer. I guess now's a good time as any to be a good human being and see my daughters.
Very good lesson in that.
Yeah. All right. So Harriet gets to a point in the conversation where she emotionally wonders why Jimmy left the family without a thought. And then here comes old interrupting Jimmy. I did think about you. I thought about you a lot. And he, at this point, I'm going to say this. I know Jimmy means well. I can sense that he's a good guy underneath all the bullshit that he did by not being a present father all these years. But you've got adult daughters who probably have no memory of you at all from the last time that they saw you, 1 and 3 years old. And then you're suddenly coming back all these years later. They're trying to figure out how to process this. You're butting into their conversation and emotionally manipulating them. He takes out the Valentine's Day card that he gave them when they were 1 and 3. And Harriet's just like, oh, Daddy is spelled T-A-T-Y. And I'm like, Jimmy. I mean, I know you don't mean it, but you clearly are looking like you're trying to just create the resolution here when the resolution is not yours to make. It's up to your daughters, but nope, here you are. Look at the Valentine's Day card. Doesn't that make things better?
This is the moment where any feeling that I had Jimmy was being genuine went out the window.
Right.
What do you want, Jimmy? You came here because you need something from these women. This is no longer I just wanted to see you. No, what do you need? because why the hell are you carrying around this old ass card that looks like a fresh piece of paper? That's something for the background people. I don't know how y'all let that get on TV looking so fresh and pristine. It was supposed to be over 30 years ago. Jimmy is a manipulator.
He seriously is. And I mean, look, I mean, at Harriette, as she receives the Valentine's Day card, she's obviously buying into it. Like I said, she's like, oh, look at how he spelled daddy, Rachel, back then. And I mean, not only that, but like Rachel, it looks like she was ready to forgive Jimmy. Like you could see her hugging Jimmy and forgiving him at the end. But at least to me, Harriette looked like she needed some time. And it didn't help that she seemed to be cornered by Rachel telling her to make amends and Jimmy unintentionally, but still emotionally manipulating her with the Valentine's Day card. I felt like Harriette was like low-key pressured to just resolve this right now. And God, big junk food moment for me. This episode could have been so much better if there would have been some like emotionally significant way for Harriette and maybe Rachel as well to say, okay, Jimmy, we're not going to give you an answer. We need some time. This is a lot. We're not saying no, though. We just need some time. So opening the door, but also setting that boundary, because that's what happens when you just walk in after all these years. You don't get to just rush things like that. You're going to be on their time at this point.
Right. I am there with that because you disappeared. And Rachel, I have to go back to her. I didn't think about something for why her and Harriette have such different reactions. Harriette was old enough to remember him. Rachel wasn't.
Right.
Rachel probably didn't remember him at all and only has memories to go off. Well, not memories, but what everybody else has said to go off of. So she was more open and accepting. But Harriet's like, I made you that damn card, dude. I remember you. And I know everything you took away from me. So I can see why she had more of a reaction, but I didn't like he said, she was cornered. She was pressured into this. This wasn't like, oh, make your own decision. It was straight up, girl, forgive him.
Yep. And then all the three of them hug, kumbaya, yay. Daddy and daughters are reunited. I don't remember anything from when I'm 3 years old. Definitely not anything from when I'm one, but do you have any memories as a 3-year-old?
The one memory that I do have is getting hit in the head with a coconut. Yeah.
Now, why would that happen, Kamala Harris?
I grew up in Hawaii, so coconuts were a danger no matter where we were. But I just remember getting hit with one as a kid. I don't know if it fell out of a tree, but I do remember the hit because there's a little knot on my head that I still have a little mark from.
Damn. All right. Well, there you go. All right. So that's it. I mean, unless you have anything else.
That is it. The soft music and lighting and how it ended was super cute. It gave me Touched by an Angel. But everything, the rest of it, I was like, okay, we could have done with that.
Yeah. Yeah. God. I was thinking as my wife, Tony, was walking in from work as I was finishing up this episode, like if I was in her position, walking in and listening to someone else watching this moment in Family Matters, my first reaction would be like, oh, this seems like an interesting, dramatic moment. And I almost want to tell Tony, like, whatever interesting, wonderful, dramatic moment you think this is, it's not. It's just a bunch of bullshit.
I can see Tony now. She's going to be like, okay, John, you're taking a break from that toxic show, and we're going to watch something else.
Is this the Urkel show? This can't be the Urkel show. Oh, my God. All right. Shall we let the knives out? What's your delicious star rating?
Funny enough, this episode got a 2-star for me.
Damn.
And that was higher than I planned on going. But This episode got 2 stars for me for very specific reasons. The first being that I loved Richie in this episode. I love their sex esteem so much. But that wasn't a full star. What made it the first full star is the fact that we got a very good balance of Steve in this episode. Yeah. I felt like I was oversaturated with Steve for a while. And now I'm like, okay, this is a good balance. Let's keep up this pace because the last 2 episodes, they've had some good pacing. Good. And then the second part of my rating, it really comes from just the delivery and acting when we get to Harriette and Rachel kind of crying. Like there was something about that scene that kind of tapped into those old childhood memories with the music. And I was just like, okay, I don't believe any of the shit that they are saying. Damn, did they get me crying. Like, the line delivery was still very good. Telma and
Joe Marie?
Marie, why do I always freeze on her name? The way they just fed off of each other, it kind of worked. It like had this like you said, Broadway feel, but it worked for me. And I was like,
Okay.
I kind of like this. So they got me.
Okay. I like that. I wonder about your tolerance for more Family Matters episodes if we do get to season 3 and beyond, if you're already saying, not as much Urkel this time around, because there's going to be an avalanche at some point.
I've jumped into season 3 because there are a few episodes that I just love in season 3. And going back, I'm like, okay, when we get to the season, there's going to be a lot of cursing, but it's okay.
Oh, God. And that cursing is going to be a walk in the park if we ever get to say, I don't know, season 8 or 9.
If we get to see the 8 or 9, I'm telling you, I am going to develop glaucoma. Like, Steve Urkel has given me glaucoma, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Every recap will start with, okay, so just to let you know, this is a 0, and fuck everybody, and have a good day.
Season 9 is just, we're just going to be like, so we don't do a rating system anymore because it's a 0, but we're here to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Anyway, we'll see if we get there because, Family Matters, they have a habit of giving us good moments, but then also trying our patience. All righty. I had to give this one a 0.5 out of 3. 0.5 is generous. I enjoy the 0.5 comes from the comedic moments from Steve, Carl when he pretends to know who Jimmy is but doesn't really know. Love that. Reginald, chef's kiss. Harriet's insult comedy joke to Carl about looking like a jerk. That was great. But the 0 part of it, the episode to me, it just only reinforces the naivete. How do you say that word? Naivete?
That's it.
The naivete, the naiveness that parents whom have abandoned their children have when they're trying to re-enter their children's lives many years later. Again, I give grace to Jimmy for making the decision that he did at age 18 when you're usually not making the best decisions. But God, I mean, the way he shows up many years later when he looks like he's 70 fucking something years old, introducing himself as somebody else, and then ending up emotionally manipulating Harriette and Rachel with that Valentine's Day card bullshit into accepting him, left a bad taste in my mouth. I thought that there could have been a much more effective, better way to handle this. Jimmy could have given Harriette and Rachel the space that they need to talk things over and then eventually invite him back into the conversation to say what they decide. Harriette and Rachel could have, like I said that, hey, we need some time to think this over, but we're open to the idea of having you back in our lives. But I get what Rich Carell and Fred Fox Jr. were trying to do. They're thinking, all right, every episode is a story in its own. We got to have a beginning, middle, end of this episode. Everybody's got to be kumbaya at the end, no matter what. And that's where they were going for. And it comes at the risk of not completely understanding how complicated it is when a parent who hasn't been around for a while comes back into your life. So, not my favorite Family Matters episode. I would certainly pick the Good Fight episode as the better of the heavy episodes. Can I ask you, why are they suddenly just giving us drama like when the season's almost over?
I don't know if they were like, squeeze in as much drama as we can get to because the finale is not going to make a bit of sense. Like, I just feel like they had all these leftover stories that they kind of just were like, let's do it.
Yeah. I also wonder if they've ran out of comedic ideas and they're just like, you know what? Let's just make people cry. We got nothing left. We're so fucking exhausted. We want our summer break to happen right now. Let's fucking make people bawl their eyes out.
They were burnt out. They were like, we have 2 additional episodes to do. Y'all are playing. You're playing out our name. It doesn't get better.
I think both Fred Fox Jr. and Rich Carell, they're white people, aren't they? Yeah, Fred Fox. Yeah. I just find it funny that this idea of like this all white Family Matters stuff, like in the beginning of the season, they're like comedic ideas, Urkel this, Urkel that, and then toward the end, they're like, God damn it! All right, we're fucking exhausted. Okay, Let's pull out the big guns. Black people, we're going to call you the N-word. We're going to fucking say that like a father is coming back into your life after years of not being there. All right, we're exhausted. Black people, let's just use the tropes.
That is exactly what they're doing. They're just like, we're throwing in the tropes because we don't have any other material to use. I encourage every single person listening to this podcast, go and watch the Dark Side of Comedy Winslow's episode with the Family Matters episode.
Yeah.
Because it is so talked about by the cast and everybody, where it's like everything flowed smoothly with the white writers when they added Steve in because they had context to his jokes.
Yeah.
When it came to the black stories, they didn't have much context to go off of.
White people shouldn't be telling black stories like that.
Leave it to them. They are being an ally. That's what they're calling it. I'm an ally. Oh, okay.
Christ. All right. Anyway, Delicious. Listen, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all the good stuff. The Delicious Recap, wherever you get your podcasts. The Delicious Recap at gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, again, that is the Delicious Recap at gmail.com. We are on all the social medias, unfortunately, because there's just too many of them. But just search the Delicious Recap on social media. The picture of Steve Urkel, Fresh Prince, the Living Single Cast, Cream Savers, Dunkaroos, that wonderful design that Andrew made. Just find us. You'll find us. That's all. And also Patreon. You want some of this madness that we talk about earlier than the general public gets it, then patreon.com/delicious recap. Not that much money, $5 a month. Patreon.com/delicious recap. You want to go ahead and plug your stuff?
I will plug the stuff. Just so you guys know, until TikTok is deactivated, we are still on TikTok. We have not gone. So Delicious Recap on TikTok or Ajay Vandertunt, you will find me as well. And you can get to the podcast page through my page as well. YouTube, Little Red Book, or Shalamshu, however you say it. And Blue Sky. Ajay, there's so many things now. Honestly, just throw a dart at the board on whatever social media you're on and type us in. You're going to find something.
Yeah, just a crapshoot. Just a crapshoot. I mean, whatever social media platform that you're on, whatever's the trend of the moment, just see if we're there. If we are, great. If we're not, life will go on. We're on a billion other platforms. It's fine.
Yes, you will find us, and you don't even have to go through the smut section of the websites to get to us because we're family friendly.
God. Stepson, stepmother porn, and then all of a sudden there's this Family Matters recap podcast.
America, are y'all okay? Why is incest porn the most searched porn in America?
Yeah.
What is going on with y'all?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Andrew. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I'm sorry. I'm guilty of that. Emphasis on the step, because they're not actually blood related. Look, everybody has their fucking fantasies, and it's not something I would advocate for in real life. It's one of those fantasies that it's just within the context of the porn world. And you keep it that way.
I am not going to shame. That is not what my statement is meant for. I just am like, okay, that is the category that is America, and I guess it is what it is. Because I'm pretty sure all the other countries got some other weird shit too.
Oh, I don't want to know. Shall you let some deliciousness ring?
So we'll let some deliciousness ring. If your deadbeat parent walks back in your life and tries to manipulate you, what I would recommend you do is go to your therapist, open up about it, and then let that deliciousness ring. Because a licensed professional is better than emotional manipulation.